Welcome to this Gifts of God Sunday talk, and I'm glad to be back. We've had some stops on the European tour where our internet wasn't so good and the timing was really not so convenient because we were doing workshops and they were too close to, the workshop stuff. So here we are back, and I'm glad to be here. There were a couple of sections that we read and did podcasts on in the last few days that I thought were very powerful. And I just wanted to review a little bit those sections. So let me get here on the screen share. Wait a minute. Gallery. Okay. So, yeah. So this was a section in chapter 17 called Shadows of the Past. And I was really struck by this last paragraph and the one leading up to it. And I thought they were so clear that the Christ consciousness is actually speaking to us. And, I've been saying that for years, that I really feel like the Course in Miracles is more or less the second coming that Jesus spoke about in the Bible. He said, well, I'll come again. Well, my feeling is he has, and this Course in Miracles is it. And what it is, it's a direct conversation that the Christ is having with us. And this will be true in all time and all space, no matter who picks up the book and reads it. It could be now, it could be 10 years from now, it could be 500 years from now. It would still be the same. It would be the Christ consciousness speaking to whoever is reading the book. And therefore, it's a very alive work. It never really falls into time. You can't say that, 500 years from now, it'll be 500 years out of date. No, it's in present time, and it's that consciousness of the Christ speaking to us directly. So sometimes it becomes very clear in the text and even in the workbook of the voice of the Christ, and it's more or less undeniable. Like you can't sidestep the language. You can't. How should I say? You can't confuse who's talking, right? So in this section called Shadows of the Past, the very last paragraph, I wanted to bring to your attention because it really was moving to me. It says, "My holy brother, I would enter into all your relationships and step between you and your fantasies." Now, when it says I would enter into all your relationships, who is that? Well, that is the Christ. He's speaking to us directly. And when he says, well, my holy brother, that would be us. That would be whoever's reading this, right? So my holy brother would be myself. I would be the holy brother, and the Christ is speaking to me. And there it is. My holy brother, I would enter into all your relationships and step between you and your fantasies. Let my relationship to you be real to you, and let me bring reality to your perception of your brothers. They were not created to enable you to hurt yourself through them. They were created to create with you. This is the truth that I would interpose between you and your goal of madness. Be not separate from me, and let not the holy purpose of atonement be lost to you in dreams of vengeance. Relationships in which such dreams are cherished have excluded me. Let me enter in the name of God and bring you peace, that you may offer peace to me. I just felt that was such a beautiful request on Jesus's part for us to join with him in our relationships. And you've probably noticed these past few sections are talking a lot about the special relationship versus the holy relationship, and how special relationships usually have motives and underlying, expectations and guilt and, fear, et cetera, so that the special relationships we form with the ego always end in some kind of limitation, disappointment, problem. And we're to take those relationships and transform them, so to speak, into holy relationships. And how do we do that? Well, we have to turn them over. It's like we have to turn them over to the Holy Spirit and clean them up and accept that the purpose of them is our process of forgiveness, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, and that the Holy Spirit's in charge of that process. And even Jesus says, I'm in charge of the process of atonement. So it's like the Holy Spirit and this voice of the Christ, to me, are kind of the same thing. So when it says, okay, my holy brother, I would enter into all your relationships, that's like the Christ saying, let me in, let me into this world of your relationships. So I was very moved by that paragraph. And plus the language of the Course, it's very, it's kind of black and white. A lot of people may not like that, but it is. It's like you're either wholly with it or you're not with it at all. And, it says it is still up to you to choose to join with truth or with illusion. But remember that to choose one is to let the other go. Which one you choose, you will endow with beauty and reality, because the choice depends on which you value more: the spark of beauty or the veil of ugliness, the real world or the world of guilt and fear, truth or illusion, freedom or slavery. It is all the same, for you can never choose except between God and the ego. That's a pretty strong line. You can never choose except between God and the ego. There's other parts in the workbook where it says, my mind holds only what I think with God. Some of those review lessons start with that. My mind holds only what I think with God. Thought systems are but true or false, and all their attributes come simply from what they are. Only the thoughts of God are true, and all that follows from them comes from what they are, and is as true as the holy source from which they came. So these are challenging statements, and I think at some point, as a student of A Course in Miracles, we're going to have to get with it or not, And I think what struck me so much about that paragraph where Jesus is saying, listen to me, brother, invite me into all your relationships. It's like a direct request, and why would we delay in saying yes to that? If the Christ is the voice of reason, of truth, of quote unquote God's thoughts, right? then why wouldn't we want to think with that mind? And why would we want an alternative to that, which in this case would be our ego thoughts, right? And I think that the choice is given to us and made very clear, and that maybe it's never been made that clear before. I can't remember in all of my upbringing in, my conventional Christian church where the relationship with Jesus was put in such a direct way that you could almost like touch it. It's like it's so palpable in that paragraph where it's like you're entering into this direct relationship with the Christ, and it's almost like he's walking side by side with you in every other relationship you have in life. And as long as you're walking along with him, you'll know what to do, you'll know what to say, you'll know how to act, you'll know what's the right direction, what's the not right direction. It'll be a blessing. It's like we want our life to be a blessing to those around us, to ourselves, to those around us. Well, how do we get there? How do we get to the certainty that everything we say, do, and act upon is going to be a blessing to ourselves and a blessing to all those around us? Well, in my opinion, it's like we need this guidance, this direction of the Holy Spirit or the Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call that. Later, there's a section in the text. It's called the Rules for Decision. I don't know what chapter it's in, but I do remember the different steps. It says, well, first step is don't make any decisions by yourself. And what's that mean? It means, well, consult, take pause, take a moment of silence and actually ask the Holy Spirit, which way do I go? This way, that way? What's the right action for me? One of the lessons in the workbook says, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say and to whom? So that's kind of like you're questioning, you're asking for guidance, you're invoking, if you will, the Holy Spirit or the Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call that, higher power, higher self, source energy, whatever you want to call it. You're asking to be guided by that, which means you're not taking action without some other input, right? It says, make sure you don't make any decisions by yourself. Well, that's the first rule for a decision. All right, well, that just means you got to stop and ask and then listen and not assume you know. That's the other pitfall, is often we ask and we already have decided what we're going to do, and we want to kind of give it a little bit of, kind of like authority of, well, the Holy Spirit told me to do this, but we've already decided what the action will be. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you don't know what the action will be. You approach it empty, without knowing, right? And then you're asking, okay, I need to make this decision. Which is it? And then you ask the Holy Spirit, and you get an answer. And then the next condition of these rules for decision is that you ask for your day to be happy, which is very interesting because this next section we read today, and it's very beautiful and very precise. It's called the Forgiven World, right? Can you imagine how beautiful those you forgive will look to you? In no fantasy have you ever seen anything so lovely. Nothing you see here, sleeping or waking, comes near to such loveliness, and nothing will you value like unto this, nor hold so dear. Nothing that you remember that made your heart sing with joy has ever brought you even a little part of the happiness this sight will bring you. For you will see the Son of God. You will behold the beauty the Holy Spirit loves to look upon, and which he thanks the Father for. He was created to see this for you until you learn to see it for yourself, and all his teaching leads to seeing it and giving thanks with him. Can you imagine how beautiful those you forgive will look to you? In no fantasy have you ever seen anything so lovely. Well, when I read that, I said, well, bring it on. It's like, that's God's will for us, perfect happiness. And in the next section, just one section later, it's called the two pictures. It says, God established his relationship with you to make you happy, and nothing you do that does not share his purpose can be real. Okay, so in the rules for decision, it says, well, if you're going through your day and you're asking the Holy Spirit, what do I do? Where do I go? What do I say? And then you decide you want to have this happy day because that's consistent with God's will, and you're not having a happy day, you have an upset, then what do you do then? Well, you have to admit you were wrong. You have to admit you made some decision by yourself. If it's not leading to happiness, then it's some decision you made by yourself without the Holy Spirit's guidance that threw a monkey wrench in the works. Something like that. But that's very clear, isn't it? I mean, if God's will for us is perfect happiness, and he's given us a means to make decisions that will give us a day of happiness, and if we're encountering something in our day that's not happy, then it must be something we did that's not in this alignment with the divine will, right? God's will for me is perfect happiness. Well, perfect happiness would be happiness that never reverts to unhappiness. It's constant. It's absolute. So anything not that would have to be some momentary slip into the ego's thought system that would produce conflict, fear, anger, guilt, whatever's not happy. So it's a matter of like catching ourselves. And that's not to say we're guilty if we screw up. No, it's like if we do screw up, catch ourselves and retrace our steps and take pause and say, well, okay, this is happening. I must have made a decision by myself, and I must be wrong, because if I was right and I was aligned with the source, I would only be in a state of happiness. It would flow, everything would work, everything would be, in this sort of divine plan of perfection. And if it's not flowing in that, then I've got to stop, pause, and correct myself. And that seems pretty simple, The way the Course in Miracles puts it, if we're really attentive, it is simple, because you can always reboot yourself. You can always stop, say, okay, something went off here, must have made a decision by myself. I admit that I was wrong, and now I want to get a new direction. And so then you stop and you say, okay, well, what do I do now? What's next? What's the Holy Spirit's action for me next to restore the order, restore the happiness? Something like that. Recently, I've been saying a lot of mantras. In the mantra breathing now, in addition to playing the mantra with the tunes, which is so beautiful, the Goma mantras, I'm also silently, while people are breathing, saying Om Namah Shivaya. And the last time we were in India, our teachers had mentioned that the Om Namah Shivaya is most activated, meaning it's most effective after you've said it 625,000 times. So if you're a person so orderly as Monique, she's been saying 1,000 a day for like 6 years, and it's no problem. She said her 625,000, but I'm a little bit more kind of like I dig into something and I do it for a while and then I dig into something else. So anyhow, I couldn't say, I probably have said 625,000 Om Namah Shivayas before, but not consciously kept track, right? So I couldn't consciously say, oh, for certain, I've said 625,000 Om Namah Shivayas. So what I did was I started keeping a little book, okay, I said 6,000 of them today. I said 12,000 of them today, and I write it in the little book, or some days maybe I don't do it, or some days I only say 1,000 and I write it in the book and I keep a record of how many I've said, right? So what I found is in the mantra breathing, I'm sitting there watching everybody breathe, right? And it's one of my jobs to do that. Sandra gives the talk, and then I watch people while they're breathing. I hold the space. So I decided, well, it's very beneficial to me and to the people who are breathing if I just say Om Namah Shivaya while I'm watching people breathe. Well, I found I can say about 6,000, 8,000 Om Namah Shivayas in the hour that people are breathing, right? So that's what I've been doing in the mantra breathes, and it's been really kind of uplifting me. And I'm sure the people maybe they're not directly feeling it, but they're getting the benefit of kind of a double mantra, right? There's the mantra that's being played, and then there's Marcus over here saying silent Om Namah Shivayas on the mala, and it helps me keep really present, really with it. So what I want to say about the mantra is like, one of the benefits of that kind of meditation is that it takes your mind to kind of an empty place, right? So, and this is where the Holy Spirit can give us directions the best, is when our mind doesn't have a lot of stuff in it, right? So the beauty of saying the mantra is it kind of empties your mind, and you're just focused on that one thing, that one Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. So in between there, it's like space, and there's nothing. So then once you've done a number of rounds, so many thousand Om Namah Shivayas, you notice your mind is very still, and you're in this kind of a peaceful place. And then your directions, you can pretty much be clear, you can count on them that it really is the Holy Spirit telling you this and that, because you've kind of cleansed your mind, brought it to this empty place, and then you might receive a direction of something. I don't know, whatever it is. that it would be particular to you and your circumstances and your life, etc. And furthermore, Parsing always said, before you read anything in the Course, it's beneficial to get your mind in that place, right? That kind of still, empty place. That's more receptive. That's like you can receive the miracle that the Course is trying to give you when your mind is still and when your mind is silent. So he would not necessarily tell us to say Om Namah Shivaya. He would just tell us to sit quiet and just practice being quiet. And so when we would go to the foundation, they had this prayer room and little cushions around the wall, and you could go sit and just sit in there and be quiet for an hour or two or however long you wanted. But it's in that practice of being quiet where you're most receptive. And you're most receptive to asking the Holy Spirit, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say to who? And you kind of get your directions for the day, right? And it's a good, simple way to do that. And I think that the Course, it's also a good way to prepare yourself to read the lesson or read the section in the text, and then it really sinks into you. Whatever it is you're reading, it's like there you are sitting there with the Christ talking to you, and it's a real relationship. It's direct, it's in the moment, it's in the present time, and then the words that the Course are saying come directly into you from the Christ, and you have no doubt that conversation between you and what you're reading, it's like the Christ is talking to you. So it's kind of like a voice from on high entering into you. It's not intellectual at that point. It's direct. And that's kind of what we're after when we study the Course. We want the directness of it. Often I tell people, when we talk about the Course around the world, there are a lot of people who have never heard of the Course in Miracles. So how do you introduce them to it, right? That they would be interested. And I always tell them, when you decide to read the Course in Miracles, it's as if you're sitting here and the Course is over there, and that is Jesus sitting there talking to you. So the Course is Jesus's thoughts being transmitted to you or spoken to you, and it's that direct. It's like the Course in Miracles is the Christ. It's not about the Christ. It's not a book about him. It is him. And if you see it that way, you have a lot more reverence for the material, and you approach it in a much more attentive way and reverential way. Parsing used to stress so much the importance of the reverence for the teacher. And in this case, the teacher is the Christ, and we have to have the reverence for that. And I think if we approach it that way, the meaning of it comes into us more and more. What I'm seeing lately in myself is I'm really trying to let go of all grievances and all past things. We have many people over the years we've worked with, and some have come and some have gone and some have stayed. And some of the people that came and left didn't always leave in what I would say is a graceful way. And maybe we asked them to leave, and that wasn't so graceful either. So I'm just trying to look at all those relationships where there may have been grievances and see them in a different light and try to clean them up retroactively in myself, see the lesson that was there for myself. God's will is that all these things that are difficult are also lessons that we're supposed to learn. And the lesson's always one of forgiveness. So I'm trying to see, well, how did I attract that? What were my thoughts? What was my part in the breakdown? And then take responsibility, forgive myself, forgive them, and clean it up and let go. And so lately when I meditate, I've been doing this inventory on my past. And it's kind of amazing how far back I've been going, like even into my childhood, even into my grade school. And, I'm just really doing a very deep inventory of my whole life and where are those places that I still need to send healing energy, cleaning energy, forgiving energy. And so I'm doing that in my recent meditations, and it's really helping, I think. Mm. And then this thing where that paragraph where it said, my brother, invite me into all your relationships. Then after I'd been doing that meditation for a while, I read that paragraph, and it was like it hit me like, wow, the Christ is right there. And he's like just asking me to bring him in, right? To bring him in and premise all of my relationships. Like, what would it be like if every relationship you had, old and new, it was started out with this vision of the Christ? You see it in yourself, and you also see it in that new person that you meet, right? So you're seeing this forgiven world, this person that you're totally neutral with, you're totally empty. You don't have any judgments, you don't have any grievances, you don't have any preferences. It's just a meeting of this pure energy. And that's what it was talking about in that first paragraph of the Forgiven World. It was saying, you have no idea how lovely this is going to look like when you're seeing people with the eyes of Christ. You're seeing everything in your world with this holy vision of the eyes of Christ. And this is ultimately what the Course is leading us to. I think we have to see the seriousness of that, and also the beauty of that, and also the happiness of that. Where it says, well, the only purpose of the relationships that God has established for you is to make you happy. That's the only purpose. So all relationships, the function is to make happy, which would be joy, which would be love, which would be peace, in the absolute sense. In the absolute sense. Like once you go there, you never return to the problematic state of the ego, And I think that's where it's beautiful. The Course in Miracles is beautiful, and that's why I wrote that book. The Master is beautiful, because when you have these true teachers, and in my opinion, the Course in Miracles is a true teacher. It's a true teacher of the Christ consciousness. You have that in your field of awareness, and that can work on you and transform you and give you a whole new perspective of everything. And what could do that but a true spiritual master? So that's why I wrote the book, The Master is Beautiful. And, you know, I wrote this section on some of the American masters. Tara Singh used to speak of them. He said that the founding fathers of America were not necessarily Washington and Franklin and, you know, Jefferson and Adams. Those were the founding fathers during the revolutionary times. But the spiritual founding fathers came much later. They were Lincoln and Emerson and Thoreau and this poet Walt Whitman. So I wrote a section on that. And then, you know, imagine meeting those characters. You know, can you imagine what the energy must have been like around Abraham Lincoln? You know, the kind of clarity that he had, the kind of one-mindedness he had, you know, in order to free the country of this slavery, the specter of slavery, how certain he had to be for that. So, I mean, these characters from history, like we kind of take them for granted, but when you think of the kind of mind they would have to enact the miracles that they did, like what would it have been like to be in the presence of Gandhi? Tara Singh was many times my teacher, with Gandhi and Nehru in the beginning. And he said they were impeccable. They were impeccable souls. They didn't have any negative things stuck on them, you know. They were just one-minded, certain, and they did what they came to do, and for all mankind, for all time. Same with Dr. Schuchman. You know, there's a lot written about Dr. Schuchman, that she was this way, that way. You know, she had her doubts, she had her this, she had her that. But Tara Singh said that was just a smoke screen to keep people away. And who she really was the mother of Jesus's mind. You know, he said Mary gave birth to Jesus's body. Dr. Schuchman gave birth to Jesus's mind. And how pure a being would have to be to do that, right? The mother of Jesus's mind. So I don't know. I think we're really blessed in these times. And the Course in Miracles is here for the rest of our life and for the lives of others into eternity. You know, 1,000 years from now, people will be reading the Course in Miracles and getting transformed. So I feel like the first generation, really, we are to have it. And we have responsibility. And it's our greatest joy to take up that responsibility and have it enact itself on us. And just the beauty of the language. I'm always astounded how simple and beautiful it is, and how unevasive it is, meaning it's so direct, you cannot go this way or that way. You either get it or you say no. But it'll make you make a decision one way or the other. It's so direct in its language. And there's nothing like it. You know, this one paragraph, God established his relationship with you to make you happy. And nothing you do that does not share his purpose can be real. The purpose God ascribed to anything is its only function. Because of his reason for creating his relationship with you, the function of relationships became forever to make happy and nothing else. To fulfill this function, you relate to your creations as God to his. For nothing God created is apart from happiness, and nothing God created but would extend happiness as its creator did. Whatever does not fulfill this function cannot be real. Well, I mean, that is potent. That is very potent, that paragraph. And it reminds me of, I think I might have mentioned this, maybe in a lecture I did in Spain. When we were in India this time, they read this book at the Navratri, the Divine Mother Festival, called the Srimad Devi Bhagwan. It's like a book about this thick, and it's dedicated solely to the Divine Mother. It's like, how did the Divine Mother create the universe? All these stories about the Divine Mother, right? And it also talks about the rishis who originally wrote these things down. So it even has the history of how the book came about in the beginning of the book. Well, the first rishis that wrote about the Divine Mother, it's like they wrote so potently, so precisely, that one or two lines could describe the whole creation that the Divine Mother did, right? So would make it clear the Divine Mother, the energy of the Divine Mother, the actions of the Divine Mother, the results of her being here, only in a couple of lines. And at that stage in human development, we've actually devolved, not evolved. So there was a time when we were much more connected with those divine forces, and we could be enlightened with 2 or 3 lines, right? But then as man got more and more engrossed, and kind of fell into matter and had this kind of sleep of forgetting the divine source, which the Course talks about too, the sleep of forgetfulness, the more he became kind of engrossed in matter and away from his spiritual connection, it took much more explanation to describe the Divine Mother and how she came about and what she did, right? So then rishis, after this, eons of man kind of descending into a lower dimension of physicality, it took them more words to describe those 3 lines that described everything, right? In the beginning, the rishi would say 2 or 3 lines and it explained everything. But then as man couldn't receive that distilled of a nectar, it took more elaboration until finally the book became this thick. It's like thousands and thousands of slokas, they call them. They're like little 2-line poems, right? And so not that that's a bad thing, but it's just the way it is. It took more explanation for the Divine Mother to be communicated, right? And that's what formed this big book. Whereas back in, another age, it may have only taken 2 or 3 lines to communicate the whole thing. So we're kind of that way now, like, why is this Course in Miracles, like 1,000 pages long or 1,500 pages long? It's like, because we have separated so far from our God consciousness, our Christ consciousness, that it takes a course 1,000 pages long that we have to give attention to, that takes us through all these kind of lessons in forgiveness to get back to the original state we always were in. So it's like we're asleep, and we're in such a deep sleep, it takes all of that to wake us up. And Christ is a benevolent guy, right? He sees, well, it's going to take a Course in Miracles to wake these people up. They've had me around for 2,000 years and they haven't got it so much. and they're still using my name to justify the most horrible things. And so that's got to stop, you know? And so he gives us something that's totally outside the organized religion, called A Course in Miracles. And immediately all that stuff is corrected. Now, it takes a couple thousand pages, but nevertheless, it's given and we have it. And if we pay attention to it, it will wake us up. It will get us back to the holy relationships that we deserve to have in life. And it will make us a light in our lives. You know, I'm the light of the world, it says. 61, I'm the light of the world. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. 62. The light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. 63. Let me not forget my function. My only function's the one God gave me. And then 66 says, my happiness and my function are one. God gives me only happiness. He gives my function to me. Therefore, my function must be happiness. And that's what it said in that paragraph. God's purpose, God's function for all relationships is to make us happy. And if they're not making us happy, then it's something we're doing, some misperception we have, some grievance we're maintaining, some judgment we're maintaining that is introducing something not happy. So I've been looking at that because recently in the last year, we've had a few people that have come and gone. We worked with them pretty closely, and then all of a sudden, we're not working with them. And I had some disappointment. Natural. I guess it's natural. You know, we experience disappointment. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying to myself, okay, disappointment is not happiness. So that's not God's will for me to be disappointed. And it's not God's will for me to be disappointed in them because they're equal sons of God as I am. And if they want to go their own direction and do their own thing, oh, well, why should I have a disappointment about that? You know, that's their free will to do that. So there should be no unhappiness on my part if people, quote unquote, disappoint me. It shouldn't be there. So I'm looking at that and I'm cleaning that up. And I think I'm getting better at cleaning it up. But it's challenging sometimes. It's challenging. Because you invest time, and when things don't go the way you want them, sometimes it's like you feel like you've invested in the wrong place, right? You lose money, you lose relationships, your investments don't pan out. So again, Jesus would say all things are lessons God would have you learn. So all those relationships that didn't work out, those were just lessons in forgiveness for you to let go and see the perfection of that person instead of your judgments about them. So they're still lessons, and we're going to have some lessons. But I want to get to the point where the lessons are so swift, I don't experience unhappiness. Perfect happiness. Perfect happiness. Wouldn't that be good, Brenda? Perfect happiness. That's my goal. I want to get to that place of the Christ consciousness where illusion is illusion. If it's not, quote, happiness, it's illusion. It's not reality. So I don't give any attention to it. I don't give any energy to it. And there's nothing really to correct other than am I giving energy to something that's not happiness? That would be my correction, right? If I'm giving energy to something that's not happiness and I'm obsessing about it, that's my responsibility to stop doing that. So that's kind of what I've been practicing lately. And I think it's working. Plus, I've been fasting. Sandra and I went on this intermittent diet where we're only having one meal a day. And I'll tell you, we've been doing it for about a week and a half now, and I'm starting to feel something coming back into me, some kind of energy, some kind of joy, relaxation, feeling better in my body. I lost a belt loop. I was on 3 notches. Now I'm on 4. So I lost a full notch on my belt. So that makes me feel better. And I want to keep going. And I don't feel like I'm depriving myself. Monique and we went out and had a wonderful lunch this afternoon. Well, that's my one meal for the day, and it was beautiful. I had my red wine, and Sandra had her Pinot Grigio, and what could be better? So things are going well. And I think staying in the flow and not making a judgment about anything. This looks like this, and that looks like that, and this looks different, and your expectations, you don't even really need them. Therefore, you don't have disappointment because you have no expectations. And then you stay in the happy state and you deal with, that doesn't mean be irresponsible. You still deal with the things that you've taken on. And that's a beautiful thing, to be productive. Tara Singh said, you must be productive. Everything in life is productive. The tree is productive. The bird is productive. All the more reason we must be productive. So Sandra and I don't have any notion of retirement. We just want to keep doing what we're doing, the things we love to do, and serve humanity and serve ourselves in doing that. So that's the beauty of it. And that's kind of where we are. We're loving Amsterdam. We always love to come here. Monique knows we love Amsterdam. We have a beautiful apartment, and it's just, we can do our work here. I was glad we had the space and we have good internet and I can do this talk. So next week we'll be in Denmark. We decided we were going to go to Switzerland, but it became clear that it wasn't flowing and very expensive to go to Switzerland, hotels and everything, transportation. So we decided we would go spend 2 weeks with our organizer in Copenhagen, and she was delighted. So we changed our plan. We're going there for 2 weeks, starting next Wednesday. So that's where we'll be next weekend, in Copenhagen with Tove. So I think that's all I have to say, and I hope it was enlightening. And I always enjoy listening to these things myself because it kind of gets me grounded, right? Gets me on track. And I'm glad to be back in the flow of the gifts of God. And thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. God bless.